Hi friends, I hope you're having a good day and you're ready to get started on our seal. Let's begin by going over our supplies. First off, I've got two samples of the seal here, one in marble from my Etsy color card, and one stitched up in this lovely German 100% wool felt. Now, I was recently gifted a bunch of scraps from another Rhode Island designer, and I thought I would give it a try on a few of my animals. On the fox, I felt that the 100% wool felt was a bit too thick for the scale that we're in. But on the seal here, it worked just fine. So if you happen to have some kicking around in a nice gray or tan, this would be a super place to use it. The next thing we have is our empty washi tape. I use this to attach the paper patterns to the fabric so nothing shifts as I cut my felt. Just make a few little rolls on the back like this and you can attach the paper easily to the felt. If you don't have any empty washi tape, Scotch makes a good version as well, which I usually find at Staples. For holding the magnets in place on the felt, I like to use double stick tape. What I have here is a Scotch double stick film I use to adhere my kit labels to their boxes, but most any double stick tape will work just fine to mount the magnets to the felt. So here are 4 rare earth magnets that are going to help our seal to hold on to things with his arm flippers and tail flippers. I don't yet have these in my shop, but I do have a source that I'll share with you guys in the post notes. Okay, so the next thing we'll need are 2 6mm eyes and a fine micron pen for making the eyeliner and any spots on the seal's fur if you choose to do that. You'll need 4 6-inch pipe cleaners and 1 12-inch pipe cleaner to wire the flippers and the neck. Our seal needs a bit of ballast in its bottom to sit properly. I discovered that 2 nickels and 2 pennies are just about right for this. To bundle the coins, I wrapped them in a bit of wool stuffing. You can needle felt the bundle together if you have felting needles handy, or just wrap it several times around with thread and knot off to secure the fiber to the coins. Also for the bottom, I glued in some chipboard to create a flat sit spot just below the coins for better balance. The chipboard on the back of a notepad works well for this. As you can see here, I've poked some holes in the cardboard. I'll talk more about why later, but a needle, straight pin, or awl work well to make these holes. Next, let's talk about our pattern pieces. So first, we have the head piece here, and this is a little different than some of my other patterns. We've got the side head, the chin. This is the nose area, and then this is the top of the head. Just between the 2 seals up there, you'll see the 2 ear pieces. This piece here is the belly piece, and next to it we have, this is the back top, this is the bottom area and the 2 flippers, and then this is the arm flipper. We'll need 4 pieces, just like this one. This is the felting needle I mentioned before for binding the wool around our little coin ballast here. And we'll need about 20 grams of wool stuffing. As always, we'll need a bamboo skewer for stuffing, and we'll need some DMC embroidery floss for our stitching. For the marble color, I'm using number 644, and then to make the nose, I'm using number 3021. If you prefer, you can also draw on the nose and the mouth with your micron pen, which is what I did on this sample. It's also handy to have wire clippers or craft scissors for cutting pipe cleaners, and a pair of needle nose pliers for fiddly stuff that your fingers might be too large for. For scissors, I recommend these Fiskars Soft Grip Micro Tip scissors. They're my go-to for all small scale sewing. One thing to note though is if you have a new pair or a pair that feels tight, you can correct that by loosening the screw a bit on the handle. When they're new, they all seem to be a bit tight and the felt fibers can accumulate to make them even tighter without this fine adjustment. If you decide you want to shade the face, you'll need some smoky eyeshadow or pastel pencils and some hairspray to set the color to the felt. And lastly, my trusty tacky glue. Both the original and turbo tacky glue both work well for use with felt. So that's it for materials. I think we're ready to get started now. Let's begin with the arm flippers. You'll need to make 2 pairs like the ones I have on the left here. On the first side, you'll stitch a trimmed bent pipe cleaner inside its edge, leaving enough felt around it to sew the flipper pieces together. If you have magnets, you'll use double stick tape to mount one into the lower corner as I have here. So I mentioned a trimmed pipe cleaner just now. The pipe cleaners I have in my shop are extra plush cotton, and most of the time that's just what we need. But sometimes I have to give them a little haircut in order to use them in new ways. To relieve the pipe cleaners of their fluff, you go about it a bit like an ear of corn, snipping down their length and removing the cotton close to the wire, then rotating to trim another row. Before we fold and attach the pipe cleaner, let's take a quick look at our magnets and get them situated. You want to make sure that the magnets are oriented so they're drawn to each other instead of repelling. To mount the magnets to the felt, I use a bit of double stick film or tape. Magnets have a mind of their own, but the tape keeps them just where you want them as you stitch. Okay, now we're ready for the wire. Start the wire about here, and then bend it so it fits inside the edge of the flipper. Sometimes a tool is handy to make rounded bends in the wire. I'm using my little bookbinding awl here, but I'm sure you have something around the house that will work just as well. After folding the pipe cleaner, bind the overlapping ends with a length of thread to close the loop. To bind the overlap, thread a needle and leave a tail like this. Then take a needle and pass it through the center of the loop. Continue wrapping the thread tightly around the pipe cleaner and spiraling down towards the tail of the thread. When you reach the end of the overlap, trim the thread and make a knot to secure the binding. Next, lay out the flippers in a mirror image to each other. Then thread a needle with a fresh length of thread and center the pipe cleaner on the flipper. Whip stitch the pipe cleaner to the surface of the felt just enough to hold it in place, but not so deep that the stitching shows up on the opposite side. When you've come full circle, knot off the thread and repeat this process on the opposite flipper. Now we're ready to stitch the flipper sides together. Layer one of the magnet pieces on top of a pipe cleaner piece. The magnet will stick to the pipe cleaner and hold one end in place. If you like, add a pin in the center of the flipper to further hold the felt in place for stitching. To stitch the flippers, use a single strand of thread and whip stitch around the circumference of each flipper. Okay, so I've gone ahead and sped up our little video here just a bit, but there's no need for you to rush at all. Just go ahead and pause the video now while you finish the flippers, and then resume when you're ready for the next step. Okay, so here we are with our finished flippers, and it looks like our magnets are working perfectly, so that is great. So now we are on to assembling the back body. So I've got a little swap out that I made here with the darts stitched, but let's go over the dart stitching together. So here's our back piece. Let's fold it in half at the darts like this. In felt, I like to whip stitch darts starting at the bottom of the V-cut. I make my first stitch just beyond the cut and through only the top surface of the felt. This secures the knot in the felt before you begin stitching the dart itself. As you stitch, check that the top corners of the V-cut match up well, then continue whip stitching until you reach them. These dart seams will be turned to the inside, so you can leave your ending knot on the same side as the stitching. When you've finished stitching both darts, turn the felt so the visible stitching is on the opposite side, like this. What we're looking at here is the inside bottom of the seal. Next, we'll insert the cardboard base and pipe cleaners for the tail flippers. These pipe cleaners need to be trimmed just as we did for the arm flippers. So earlier I mentioned I would tell you more about the holes in the cardboard and what they're used for. As you can see here, I stitched the ends of the tail flipper pipe cleaners to the cardboard base. To create the cardboard pipe cleaner unit, trim the pipe cleaners as you did for the arm flippers and fold them to fit inside the edges of the tail flippers. Poke a few holes in the cardboard and use them to stitch on the cut ends of the pipe cleaner. Lay in the pipe cleaner cardboard unit and use tacky glue to attach the cardboard to the felt. So here I've gone ahead and sped things up a little bit. I'm just stitching the tail flipper pipe cleaner to the felt below it, just as we did on the arm flipper pipe cleaner. And so you just want to make sure that your stitches here are going just through the surface so that they don't show on the other side. So now we're ready to attach the belly piece. And I've got my magnets attached here with the double stick tape, just as we did on the flippers. And you can see that the magnets are attracted to each other and not repelling each other. And so that's the double stick film again, but double stick tape will work to mount them to the felt. So now we are ready to place the front belly on the back and get it ready for stitching. So I'm just moving the magnets so that they stick nicely to the pipe cleaner that we stitched in there. And I'm just lining up the side seams here. Okay, before we stitch up the body, let's get our coins organized and make the weighted bundle I mentioned earlier. What we'll do here is stack the coins and wrap the stack with a piece of tape to hold it together. Then pull off a narrow piece of stuffing. You don't want it to be too bulky. If you pull it a bit, the fiber piece will slim down and lengthen for you. Now wrap the fiber tightly around the coins. You can wrap it one way and then shift the bundle and wrap it the other way. What you want it to do is completely cover the coins. If you have a felting needle, you can use that to bind the fiber around the coins. Just be careful not to break its tip as you needle the fibers. If you don't have a felting needle, you can simply wrap the bundle with thread. Make sure to leave a tail, like we did when we bound the pipe cleaners earlier. Having those two ends allows you to tie up the bundle nicely after wrapping. Okay, great. So the next thing is to whip stitch the lower half of the body. We'll start at one of the back darts and then continue around the flippers and up the opposite side to the other dart. For your starting and ending knots on this step, go ahead and hide them between the felt layers of the seam line. When you have that ready to go, we'll first put a bit of stuffing in the lower portion of the body where the flippers split, but not in the flippers themselves. Okay, so now we're ready to add our weighted bundle. So just go ahead and tuck it into the body up against the darts in the back there. We'll need a bit more stuffing beyond the bundle in the lower tail. So just add a few pinches there with your skewer until there's a smooth transition between the tail and the bundle. Next, we'll stitch the upper sides of the body with a whip stitch, leaving the neck hole open for stuffing. Okay, so now we are ready to stuff the upper half of the body. I know that neck hole is a little bit small, but if you just open it up with your skewer, you'll be able to poke small pinches of stuffing down into the cavity. Go ahead and keep stuffing until the body has a nice, smooth, firm look to it. Next, you're going to add your pipe cleaner. So I'm just folding this 12-inch pipe cleaner in half and trimming down through the stuffing to make a channel for it. And I can slide it down, the folded end first, into that channel. Let's just look at how much went in there. So I suggested a 12-inch pipe cleaner, but I think you could probably do it with a 6-inch. So once you've got that pipe cleaner securely in the channel, you can go ahead and trim it about 1 inch from the neck hole. And as you finish your stuffing, you're going to want to add it in front of the pipe cleaner and behind the pipe cleaner and to either side as well, just to get a nice even look to the stuffing. Now you can fold down the exposed pipe cleaner and match up that cut end with the neck hole. Super cool. So now we are on to the head, and this is a bit different. All the parts of the head are included in one piece. We've got two side heads, the chin and the top head, and the spaces between them are going to act like darts. So the chin will fold down like that, and then the nose and top head will come around like this. Okay, so I've got a couple of samples here. This one has the top head and the chin stitched. You can see the chin seams right here. And then the top head is stitched from the nose about 2/3 of the way to the back of the head. So we want to leave the back of the head open for turning because we're going to turn the whole head through that hole and have the front stitches on the inside. And then we'll go ahead and stitch from the top of the head down to the back of the neck on the outside like this. Okay, so let's get started here. I've got the head piece and I'm just going to start on the chin. So I'm folding the dart down and we're going to stitch the darts here very much like we did on the back body. But this time on the chin, I'm going to go from the base of this dart and do my little whip stitch, and I'm going to come down to the point that will be the neck opening. Then I'll flip it around here, and we want to make sure to leave that neck opening. So go ahead and finish up that second dart right up to the nose, and then you're going to knot off your thread. So this is on the inside, so you don't have to worry about hiding that knot at all. For the side seams on the top of the head, I suggest you base them before whip stitching. When you're stitching curved seams like this, sometimes the felt stretches or shifts while you stitch, and the head can come out a bit torqued or lopsided if you don't hold it in place with a basting stitch. So now we're on to the top seams, and we'll just get started at the nose again. And go ahead and do our whip stitch along the seam to about 2/3 of the back of the head. So make sure at the end of each of the side seams that you knot off your thread, and you don't need to hide your knot or anything because both of these seams will eventually be on the inside. As you come to the end of the second seam line, just check to see that the stitches are equal to each other, and then you can knot off your thread. Okay, so let's stop the video here. I know a lot of you are excited to begin, but I still have a bit to go with my editing. So while you get started, I'll finish that up and I'll see you soon.